What's up, Sassy Gamers? Today is June 10th, 2021, and this is Got Our Attention Podcast, episode 52. And if you're not counting, I'll just let you know that this is our 1 year anniversary. We have been podcasting for a year, a full year, one episode per week for a year. And I will be quite honest, it doesn't seem that way. And I actually just realized that I got so excited that those who are watching the stream, when this is live, I actually tweeted out this was episode 51. So I guess we can do this again next week because I totally forgot to update that. But for those of you who are listening, just know that this is actually episode 52. Wow.
I could live a lot longer without hearing you wax on about you suddenly getting excited.
Yeah, so we'll have to do this again next week. But no, it's crazy. And I guess maybe this comes with the territory that like we're, doing this weekly, and this is something that like we've kind of like embedded into our lives because we're having to like make sure that we do this every week and gather the articles and kind of make ourselves this new job that, we didn't have before. And it's really interesting.
It's a job.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like all of the things that we have seen and covered over the last year.
I want to clarify. It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's not a job because we really don't get paid for this at all.
That's true.
Sign up for that Patreon and help us out with that.
Yeah, and then there's like we're getting the experience. It's about the experience.
Oh God, don't do that.
We're that scumbag.
I mean, even if you do go to the Patreon, all the money's going back into creating content anyway.
It's true. And helping fuel the fire of our passion, I guess you could say. But no, it is crazy that over this past year, there has been, and I'd probably say it's been the craziest year. I mean, it's only because we're familiar with it because we've been covering it. But I will say there was a lot of things last year that were nuts. Like, obviously the pandemic being the number one on that list and kind of what made this all happen because we were like, we want to do something. And it's, what can we do virtually? And we're like, hey, let's start a podcast.
We were literally discussing that earlier today. And, you're like, okay, a year. And in the grand scheme of things, a year, one perspective is a long time. Another perspective, it's a very short time. And we were sitting down. We're like, how did we start this?
Yeah.
Like, we're like, okay, was it your idea? Wait, no, was it your idea? Or wait, no, I think you had this idea, but you came up with this idea, and then we kind of put them together. And I'm not even going to say what the answers were of what we think the answers are now, because one, I don't even know we're 100% correct. And two, who cares? Because I don't care how we thought of the idea and why we thought of it. The fact is we're here, we're having fun. We've got people with us that are having fun. Shout out to the fam that are listening to us, whether it's later on in a podcast, listening to us live, watching us live,
watching our content.
People already live with Academy Impossible, Day Drinker, Oh God, Bando, and this Stream Elements person just keeps showing up all the time.
They're always here. What is this?
Our best supporter.
It's
a robot.
It's super interesting, and obviously we appreciate you all for even giving us some time of your day to just even turn us on to maybe just put it in the background and not even watch it, but just maybe listen occasionally as you do something else. It helps. Every little bit kind of motivates us to keep making more content and everything else. So we do appreciate you guys. And
it's not even just listening to us. It's if you turn us on, whether it's YouTube, podcast, live, whatever, and if we in any way, shape, or form help you through your day, then I am just so happy.
And if your James sucks and we make your day worse, I'm also very happy.
Yeah.
Well, there's that too.
There is that as well. But just being, even if it's a small part, like you may turn on the YouTube while you're at work, working from home, and have it on in the background just for some noise, and occasionally catch us saying something dumb or having
say a lot of that.
Well, yeah,
definitely a lot of that. Yeah.
Or just laughing at Bruno being both the typical and atypical Canadian, and Mike having that sultry, sexy voice, and me being a crotch ass mother. Yes, I'll have to beep that one out, but whatever.
I was like, are we swearing now? Hold up.
Hey,
this 1 year anniversary is about to get real vulgar real fast.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about this is, you know, we're also kind of like data nerds. I say kind of, some are more than others. And, you know, we have taken...
Some of us just learned how much others were data nerds.
It's true.
Today.
Very much so. But we also take, you know, this last year, because we want to improve ourselves. We want to make ourselves better. We want to make our content better. We want to make, you know, you guys more entertained and all of that. So we actually did take all of the data from this past year, and we've been kind of analyzing it without, you know, using the paid subscriptions, because we can't afford that stuff right now anyway, right? But we're trying to take that same data. And
this is not like your Google and Facebook invasive,
you
know, data. We don't know your demographics. We don't know, you know, all we know is we've got this many views for this video or this time frame, and some subscriber data, and, you know, some basic data like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, doing things like thumbs up on YouTube, putting a review on Apple, you know, on the Apple iTunes when you're listening to a podcast, all of that helps us, because we're thinking of ideas of like, oh, we just kind of like thought of this idea and like did this show really quick, and a couple of people liked it. And even a couple of people at this point matters so much, because our audience is smaller.
Yeah.
And so every single vote means that much more. And, you know, we've even got some ideas for some different shows coming up.
Yeah. And I was going to kind of mention that too. But it's we have some planned content that we want to do. We have some planned ideas to how to expand the show. That's something that we've been talking about recently, and you guys will obviously know more as soon as we get there. But there's just a lot of things that go into this day in and day out. And I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say, and maybe they can say it too, but we just really appreciate you guys listening. So thanks again for this last year. Even if you just hate listening to us and you've tuned in once, and maybe this is the one you're checking in to see if we still suck, and we still suck for you, I appreciate you listening for that. So we really appreciate that.
The phrasing that Zycia uses is always so questionable. But yes, essentially what he's saying is, we appreciate y'all tuning in, whether you don't like us or you do like us, for sticking around in any shape or form. We're cool with it. Honestly, if you don't like us, you can drop an email at us and tell us why you don't. You can be as mean as you want. I will accept all of the rude that you can provide me.
That's very true. So anyway, today's podcast is going to be a little different. There's some things we're going to cover that we have lined up like typical.
We'll figure it out.
And then we're going to do a little bit of different things later. So stay tuned. The first thing, this is kind of like a PSA.
PSA.
For people who have Amazon products. So if you remember a few years ago, Xfinity made an announcement that if you have one of their broadband routers in their house, they would allow you to, or they wouldn't allow, they would automatically set your broadband router to a Wi-Fi network that was open to anybody around you. The idea was so that if you were ever in a neighborhood or driving around and you needed internet, you could connect to one of their Wi-Fi AT&T Xfinity points, which you would still have to have a username and account to be able to log in to actually access the internet. But it was basically taking individual consumers' routers that most likely they were renting, because that's why they were able to do this. But they were taking that internet and being able to share it. And that was something that like a lot of people were like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Like, I don't want people to just sit in my internet like that. So that happened. Well, recently, Amazon, if you're familiar with Amazon, have Amazon products like the Echo, the Dots, whatever. Amazon just recently announced that they have Amazon Sidewalk now, and that is literally doing the same thing. So if you are not, go ahead.
Well, it's not doing the same thing. It's not letting people's cell phones really on your network. It's allowing your devices, Alexa devices or Ring devices, if your internet goes out, it will then see if one of your neighbors has these devices and it'll go through their internet and vice versa. And it's under the concept of, okay, it's you're now more secure and more fault tolerant, because if you have something weird going on your internet specifically at your house, like say a garbage truck runs over your fiber box and kills fiber to your house and your internet goes out, but your neighbors is still working, well, you'll still have access to your Ring cameras.
Well, no. The garbage truck hit the fiber for the whole neighborhood, so none of your neighbors would have internet. Not saying that this was a real story or anything.
Not that this is a real story, but maybe your neighbors behind you are part of a different fiber box, and they're close enough that your Ring can get access to that network through their Ring camera or their Alexa, and then that way you still have that security of. I mean, I don't really use it for security. I use it for the fact to see when my Amazon package gets dropped off. But that's what they're saying. And that's what they're telling us. Now, I think some of the concerns are, okay, sure, that kind of makes sense. But then what if somebody spoofs their device to look like network-wise a Ring camera or an Alexa, and then they now have access to my internet through that.
Yep.
And are able to at least hack their way into the internet. And how good are the tools for this in my little Alexa spot that are going to prevent him to getting onto my personal network, since they're kind of already in it in a way.
Yeah.
And I think there are some serious security concerns out there. I myself, I was remiss. I actually should have brought this up last week, and I didn't because I knew about it. It actually took a friend of the podcast, Day Drinker, to hit us upside the head with a clue by 4 and let us know that, hey, some people might want to know about this. I turned mine off about a week ago, and I have both Ring and Alexa, so I had to go into 2 different apps, and they don't make it easy to find this.
Well, yeah.
When you do find it, at least it's called Sidewalk, but it is not easy to find. Once you do find it, it's pretty easy to turn it off. I need to check it to make sure it stayed off, but
so just an update.
I'd say go online.
Just to update you guys. I know last week I told you that my fiber was out. So true story, Garbage Man apparently had ran over the fiber box last week, and that's what caused me to have no internet for like 3 days, and that's what caused us to be delayed on the podcast and all that fun stuff. Fun fact, this week on Trash Day, which was Tuesday, today's Thursday, the Garbage Man ran over the fiber box again, causing me to have to get the representative out here again to fix the problem, and that's when they told us, so last week that happened, and then apparently this week it happened again. So I don't know if this person is an ex-employee or of the company, or if it's like just really bad driving. But apparently it's easy to destroy fiber boxes when you run them over with garbage trucks. So
maybe he's just trying to impact Bezos's baby Skynet.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he's taking the Sidewalk to a whole another level. So
yeah, he's like, I'll show you a sidewalk, all right.
Exactly. So. But anyway, PSA, if you have Amazon devices and this is something that you're interested in or not interested in, there is a way to do it. You can Google it or whatever it and find that information online. So, all right.
There you go.
Let's get in it.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to start another PSA. And this one is, don't steal people's art. Expletive.
There you go.
Did such a good job.
That was good.
We're, of course, going to be talking about Capcom.
Oh,
A recent data leak.
thought you were talking about my title screens.
Well, talk about that later. Let's focus on the big fish right now.
Yeah, right.
Not the SASS fish.
The ones that are making money.
The ones that are actually making money off of stolen art. So there was recently a data leak for Capcom, and some information came out that will hopefully cost them millions of dollars. Essentially, I'll read the initial start of the article. So on Friday of last week, a designer, Judy A. Jurasek, filed a lawsuit against Comcast, alleging that they used photos.
Yeah, Capcom, not Comcast.
Capcom. I wish. Capcom. My bad. Alleging that it used photos for her copyrighted book, Surfaces, which was originally published in 1996. The book is like a collection of 1,200 different photos, and specifically the lawsuit is only for 80 of the photos. However, the 80 photos appear in over 200 instances within Capcom games, and it's not just one Capcom game. It's across many, and in some situations, it's utilized for the logo of some of their games.
Oh God!
So they actually utilized some of her art within the logo of one of the Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 4, which is problematic. Her lawyers are asking the courts to award her $12 million in damages for copyright infringement, an additional $2,500 to $25,000 for each used photograph under the grounds of false copyright management and removal of copyright management. Part of the evidence that she got does come from the data breach that happened last year. Because Capcom, I keep wanting to say Comcast.
I know.
I don't know why.
I don't either.
Because Capcom...
They usually get sued, probably.
Sorry, I got distracted by something. Specifically because Capcom was the victim of a ransomware attack. So yeah, I don't know exactly why Capcom thought they could do this and get away with it, but apparently it worked for like a long time, because Resident Evil 4 is not a new game by any means.
Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing too, because they used a common compositing technique that's used in photography, which is that you take your photo or your main subject and you composite a texture onto it. And that's what's going on in this Resident Evil 4 thing. Resident Evil 4 logo here. They took this, what looks like, I don't know, shattered glass or ice, sepia toned photo here, and they used it to provide texture to the number 4. And you could even see that the final result doesn't even have like really all that much of the cracks or anything like that. The fact that they were able to like, okay, so we know that they're copying stuff and they're using stuff. The fact that they managed to find a composited texture in this is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of stuff here that, oops.
I love the way this is documented. It's great.
It's pretty wild. It really is. Like, this is definitely a story to where if we were still swearing, I would be going absolutely off. Like, for some background here, my wife is an artist, and one of the things that absolutely pisses me off the most in this world is when people try and steal her art to profit off of it anyway. If somebody steals her art and claims, like, hey, this is my art, I'm annoyed. But if you steal somebody's art specifically with the intention of using it in a product that you're going to make money off of, you are a special piece of something. And there's a special place for you, because that's just such a...
Yeah, that's not cool.
Horrible thing to do.
I hope she gets awarded that too, because especially like think about the products they were selling that has these like textures and things on, like millions of copies sold. Like,
right.
Yeah, they're like flagship games, like
everywhere.
Staples, absolute staples of their studio in general, and they're using a lot of this person's material.
Yeah.
Like 200 instances of use of art, 80 different pieces of art. That's a lot of art. Like, that would cost a small fortune to actually purchase from a professional artist and utilize in a professional sense like that.
Yep.
Not to mention royalty deals or outright purchasing of those products would have forced it to cost even more money. And now they have to pay for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, I hope that that's what happens. And whoever did that, whoever made that choice is going to be fired. They are going to lose
and if they don't
job.
work there anymore, they're never going to work
anywhere
at another studio ever again, so long as they live. I guarantee it.
But yeah, it's interesting. People are garbage sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, speaking of something other than garbage, we have this game that is right down Mike's alley. Just the perfect game for him. But unfortunately, they never made it. All they ever made was a playable teaser. That's right, PT, which has been delisted from the PlayStation Store, so you can't download it anymore. And it was supposed to be a teaser that they put together for a new Silent Hill game that they ended up never creating. But it still keeps coming back up in the news because they keep just digging into it and finding new things. And sure enough, there is this gentleman out there that does a lot of hacking of video games. And he takes a point of hacking directly on the console itself, not doing hacks of PC emulations. And he went ahead and took a look at PT to find out some interesting things. It was Mr. McDonald. I think it's trying to double check here. Yes. Lance McDonald has his own YouTube channel as well, where you can see some of his work. And he said he had a heck of a time with this one because one of the most common ways to do some of this hacking is to break the camera loose from your character, to do things like push it out of bounds so you can see like an overview of the map, because the way clipping works, typically you can, from when you're looking from the outside in, you don't see the textures that prevent you from seeing into, rooms. And every time the camera would clip out of bounds, the ghost, which I believe is named Lisa in PT, which is famous for like getting all up your face really fast and like, twitching around in your face and looking disgusting.
Nope.
And then killing you and then starting you back over again. And they had hard programmed the game so that anytime that the camera clipped out of bounds, that it would do that. And it was scaring the bejeebus out of him because it's a jump scare. It's quick and fast. There's loud. He said he had to do things like turn off his computer's audio so that it would stop doing this. And what he found is that the reason why they were able to so quickly and immediately have Lisa jump out at you for certain things that you did in the game, part of the game, in fact, is because, normally, we got to load assets in, and it takes a second, and even a little bit, even a split second is noticeable. Lisa, the ghost, is always loaded. And even more disturbingly, because what he did is he found a way to get the camera to stand still so that he could walk down the hallway. And this allowed him to, just get a couple more interesting views where he found out that Lisa, the reason why she can pop out so quick is because she's always there. So you can see her shadow shaking there. So it gave kind of creepy effects like that because Lisa is always right behind you, matching your every move. As soon as you pick up the flashlight in this game, they lock this ghost immediately behind your character the entire time until she needs to jump out and scare you. So in this case, he was able to like move the camera while not rotating his character. That was the example he does there. And the video here is a good 10-minute video. He goes over a lot of the interesting things that go on. He's able to show her quite a few times doing different things, following this character around. He was even actually, I believe, able to break the camera loose, because those who know a little bit about PT know at the very end, the person escapes from the house and then it pulls back and it's revealed that it's Norman Reedus. And he was actually able to prove too that at certain times they're actually loading the reflections, even though the body is invisible, they'll load the reflections of Norman Reedus because there's a mirror in the house that is all occluded at the top. So you can't see what your reflection looks like, just like a little bit of motion. He moved the camera lower to where it wasn't as occluded as much and could see the reflection of, the character. So I highly recommend going and checking that out. That's Lance McDonald again. I know that Zycia is going to immediately after this podcast go and check it out himself.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm totally going to play that probably tonight. I'm going to find it online and just download it.
And I kid, we all know Zycia hates horror film or horror games where he has to play them.
Yeah.
Which is why we love the Halloween tradition of him putting together a charitable stream where he plays the games that we set up for him.
So you said tradition.
Well, he loves and hates.
That means it's like a thing that always occurs.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that.
Oh, it's going to be a thing. You know what else is a tradition? You know what else is a thing that occurs a lot?
Throw it back.
That hasn't occurred for a while. That's right. It's time for Zycia's Cyberpunk 2077 weekly update.
You're losing the steam. Like you didn't have the right amount of
it's like
umph.
It's been a while since I did that.
It's bi-quarterly at this point or something.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we're getting to throw it back today because it's what a perfect opportunity to do that, right?
Yeah.
So this would be a perfect opportunity for that. So recently there was so everybody's aware, most likely, that CD Projekt Red got hacked and a lot of their stuff got leaked. A lot of source code for multiple games got leaked, including Cyberpunk 2077. One of those things during this leak, someone had posted, there's a scene which looks to be like era 2013 of pre-game footage, pre-alpha footage that they had created, which was pretty interesting because it was also from third person. And you get to see over the shoulder of the character, and it definitely looked old. You could tell it was not. It was a 2013 game. So they just different showed like that, like V actually in his apartment doing different things. And there's also a bunch of other footage that showed up, as almost like blooper reels of different things happening within the game. And there's also obviously developer demos where they're you can still see the measurings of different animations and different things like that. And some of the animations aren't really loaded. It's kind of just checking certain things out. But a lot of this is now surfaced because of the fact that the leak happened and people are starting to dig into all of this source code and such. Actually, that looked like a regular footage of the game. That last one. I think
some of it's newer. Some of it's...
No, I think that one with the car... No, that one with the car and everything was breaking. That was live footage. Yeah, that was active footage of the actual game, though.
Right.
It was released.
Exactly what it looks like.
So, but that was pretty interesting. So that's all been online. You can definitely check it out. Another thing that was found too, because there's also people still, there's still people playing this game apparently. But there is a fan who actually found some more buildings. So there was a building before, it was a metro, like one of the train stations that they talked about that we're going to have in this game that didn't exist. They had found one of those train stations and was able to go inside it and see that the assets were kind of built and kind of ready to be a building, but just they never unlocked that building. You can go into it. So one of those things that they found was another couple buildings in the game that you're able to actually walk into that are, clip into.
This dude is riding a pig. No, it's a cat.
It's a cat.
It's a fat Siamese.
So, but there was a thing that they were able to go into almost look like a shoe store, almost like a fancy shoe store or fancy clothing store.
Yeah, fancy clothing
and
store.
Walk around and see the things. And then the mirrors were in there too, but the mirrors didn't break, but they also didn't really have any reflections in them. So that's probably why. But there was a lot of different things that were discovered during this leak that happened. And if you guys are watching this live, if you're listening, I would suggest you watch this live because you get to see the actual
or watch the YouTube,
you'll actually get to see some of the ridiculous amount of clips that we're watching right now. Some of this stuff's like just ridiculous. But yeah, it's an interesting time. And it's an interesting discovery that we found, or not we found, but the people who were doing this found. Like, and that's why I say, like, some of this actually looks like the game footage that we saw.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like some of it could have just also been from them. They knew the bugs were there, but they just didn't have time to fix them.
Yeah.
They did something similar, if I recall, for The Witcher 3. They eventually released like a blooper reel of like, look at all the funniest bugs we ran into when we were doing development. So they probably had an intention of doing that for Cyberpunk 2077 until Cyberpunk 2077 didn't need a blooper reel because the game itself was the blooper reel.
Exactly.
We're like, well, should we release this? We already look so bad. Let's not. And then somebody hacked them, stole it, and put it out there anyway. So.
Exactly. And actually, 6 hours ago, CD Projekt Red tweeted another important update. And this is something that was sent out. It says, we would like to share with you the following a follow-up on the February security breach, which was targeted CD Projekt Red Group. Today, we have learned new information regarding the breach and now have reason to believe that the internal data illegally obtained during the attack is currently being circulated on the internet. We're not able to confirm the exact content of the data in question, though it may be believed that it may include current and former employee and contractor details in addition to data related to our games. Furthermore, we cannot confirm whether or not the data involved may have been manipulated or tampered within the breach. They keep going on to say that they're obviously working with investigation of different agencies to try to figure this out. But it's basically what they're saying is it's a little worse than they initially thought, which, I mean, I think everybody else already knew this. I think they were the ones that were like not really realizing like how bad this probably was.
I think they probably realized the potential for it. I think they were hoping, they were trying to be optimistic about how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, how much, they were probably thinking,
this bus is doing a donut.
They were probably thinking, how far down does this rabbit hole go? Like, how close to rock bottom are we going to get? And they were like, we can't get much worse than our entire reputation being destroyed. And then some hacker out there was like, you can actually. You can.
Yeah.
You just wait. Just when you think you're coming around the bend.
Dude, this dude's driving a table.
A table.
Yeah, like a TV cart.
Oh my god.
I mean, it is what it is. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If I were them, I don't think I'd need to react and be like,
the chickens.
Like, I don't think I'd be like, whoa, we have to scrub the internet of this stuff. Like, at this point, it's out there.
I mean,
they
should embrace
keep doing what they're doing.
They should embrace it and like actually release this as mods because like this game could be a lot different.
Oh, I think it just started over again.
We're gonna have to
one of the things I think about is when
video.
No Man's Sky came out. There was one very specific viral video that was the Jurassic Park theme played on a kazoo with one of the messed up dinosaurs stuck going in a circle on a glitchy planet with terrible graphics, and it was viral. Everybody was making fun of them for it, how bad the game was, how buggy it was. And now, because they put the effort into fixing that game, people compare that video and make like meshed videos of that with what the game looks like now. So really, they set the bar really low for themselves. All they gotta do now is step over it and like try and do something positive with what they have left.
And just don't announce it. Just work on it and then release it when it's finished. That's all we ask.
Everybody is gonna hate on you no matter what at this point. You dug yourself into a hole. Just ignore everybody now. Work on the game. Come back to us when you're ready.
Yeah.
So here's from the man that you love to hate. Here's a little bit of the Witcher stuff. And there's a great part coming up here where they do some motion cap for Roach the horse.
Oh man.
It is just great watching two people in mocap suits pretending to be a horse.
If you guys aren't watching this, you need to watch the video because
this is awesome.
My lord. I mean, they aren't horsing around.
They're not horsing around.
Oh man.
Yeah. Thank you, James the Great. James the sucks.
Jesus. Well, that is our news for the day. Hang tight for just a few minutes here, listen to a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back with some more stuff. And we're back, because that's what we do. So, as I said, it's going to be a little different today than what we typically do. If you follow us on Twitter, you know that we we didn't play a game of the moment this week. And it was in preparation for this podcast today, because we wanted to change it up a little bit. And the reason why is we have a lot of things to talk about from the last year. We want to kind of celebrate a little bit. So usually we do what we've been playing at this point. And over this past year, we've literally played many games for Game of the Moment for what we host, and also just other games like in general. So what we're actually going to do this time is we're going to talk about some of these things that we've played last year. So I'm going to kind of ask an open-ended question. You guys can answer it. Give me your best thought. I'll give you mine. And I'll start off with what was your favorite Game of the Moment game last year?
I mean, mine's pretty easy. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. It was my favorite Game of the Moment first because I actually genuinely liked it. And I wasn't sure that I was going to when I first started up. I'm not an adventure game player. And even the strategy side of it isn't super deep strategy, but still kind of fun. But just the running shorts gag was hilarious. Zycia, your reaction the entire Game of the Moment was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
And I think
quite interesting.
Wasn't that the first one of our new format too?
Actually, it was our new format.
There's several reasons why that one was hands down my favorite.
Cool. What do you have, Bruno?
That was a good crowd reaction too. We had a lot of people chatting on that one.
I think for when I officially joined and passed that, it would probably Loop Hero. Had a lot of fun with that. But overall, in the last year that we all played together, I have to agree with Bando, who was talking about it. Among Us. I had a lot of fun with Among Us. I think in the last year, Among Us has brought me some of the most enjoyable gaming experiences across the board.
I'd agree with
any
that.
game that's released. Just like, because the game itself is there's so little to it in terms of actual game. A lot of it's like the people make the game. And we played with a lot of entertaining people, which made it a lot of fun. So that's my vote. My final vote is Among Us, but my contender in second place is Loop Hero.
Okay. So my number one, and we've talked about this already. Scary games are not my thing, but there has been one game that we talked about literally half a year, and I know Bando in chat has also said this, but it is Phasmophobia. It was a game that kind of came out of nowhere, and we liked to play it. We started playing it, didn't really understand what the game was about yet because we were having to learn as we play, and it was kind of janky at first, and we talked about how janky it was. And still, yeah, I mean, it's meant for VR, and we're playing it with like mouse and keyboard, and it just, there's some sort of feeling like playing that game that just, even though I hate scary games, and I do, it kept driving me back. It still does. I still play. I played last weekend. Like, it was like, it's still a game that's continuously in my rotation, and I can't say that for much of many games these days. But my second runner-ups, well, go ahead.
For a game made by one person who is continuing to support it and put more stuff in it, a game that I was brought in and everybody's like, oh, you got to try this out. And I'm like, these controls are jank. You can't, like, the run, you barely go any faster. Like, you can't open and close doors reliably. It's just total crap. And it was just, Captain E is just saying it right now. It brings you in. And that's what we've said when we first talked about this at Game of the Moment. We've said all these things, but it drags you in, kicking and screaming and complaining about all the things outside around it, but it's the atmosphere and just, even like the, some of the lower, resolution textures, doesn't matter. The atmosphere is so well put together and balanced that it's so immersive. You forget a lot of the jank. You talked about playing like this last weekend. We brought in a new player to it this last weekend, had to show that person the ropes, and that person had the same problems we did. And I can't pick this up, and now I can't put it down right. And how do I put it down?
How do I open the door?
What do you mean? There's 2 different buttons to put things down. And again, even though going through the same things, that all disappears in like 30 minutes. And all you're doing is having so much fun with that game.
Yeah. So I have to say, overall, probably my favorite game of last year. I do have a couple of runner-ups, and some of these people in chat have already mentioned this, but Among Us was definitely one. So I'll give Bruno some kudos on that one. That's definitely one of the ones over the past year. Being the person that likes to play like the trader style games, like, it was perfect. It's a perfect game, and it's not much to it, right? To play it. And then secondly would be, or I guess thirdly would be Fall Guys. Fall Guys was another one that I still tend to play. It was a game that came out with, multiplayer battle royale-esque, and like you're like 60 people and you're going down through each game trying to figure out who's the winner, and I thought that was really cool. And then someone else actually mentioned it too. I think it was Bando again, but it said Night Squad. Night Squad was a honorable mention because of the fact that it was so much fun for a random, like almost like a beta game that we got to play. And we had a bunch of people join. There was like 8 of us or 9 of us, and we were all able to play this game. And there was just some really good strategy to that game, and that was really cool to see. And it was unexpected, really. So yeah, that's that one. I'm gonna go with the next one. Is what game of the moment game were you most upset with?
Oh boy, there's 2 prime contenders for me, and I don't know which one to choose. And one of them, Mike didn't interact with during Game of the Moment. It was just me and Brian. We went through the demo. And the other one, all 3 of us did our own streams for it. And really, I'm surprised that these are the 2 games that ended up at the top of this list, bottom of my overall list. But I have to talk about both of them. Cyberpunk 2077, overall, was the largest outright disappointment. Not necessarily just for me. I expected a lot more of it, but I had a decent time with it, all things considered, aside from my save getting corrupted because I went over the threshold. But like just the lack of the ability for a lot of the people I knew to play it successfully. The game was very frustrating. It was not what was promised. I felt like they just underdelivered almost entirely across the board. So it kind of earns a slot up there for its promises kept, promises broken ratio. But then the other one that I can't leave out is Outriders. We played the Outriders demo. The Outriders demo was kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. I played the Outriders demo for 40 something hours. And then I played the actual game for 100 hours. And what killed it for me wasn't even the initial technical issues. It was the technical issues that came after. It was probably the worst release in terms of a post-release support of any game in the last year, and the greatest disappointment in terms of it promised so much, it delivered on it initially, and then it failed its community afterwards, completely destroyed its community of its own accord. Really, it really, they did it to themselves. So yeah, my game of the moment that I'm most upset with is between those 2, and I can't pick either or because they're flawed for their own reasons.
I almost think that, and I don't want to order your list, but I almost think for you, Outriders would almost have to be the top, because, like, sure, Cyberpunk was a disappointment, and it was a disappointment because there was all this outside hype that we participated and bought into.
Yep.
And then the game, sure, it had bugs. and I know for you had some almost game breaking bugs, but for the most part, you worked and yeah, it didn't deliver everything they promised you. I think Outriders is almost worse because we had a game of the moment and we jumped in there and we liked it and it was fun. And it was us. It wasn't us looking at hype or anything. It was us actually playing it. And again, you played hours and hours and hours and hours of the demo.
Mm-hmm.
And even that, just the fact that there was a demo. How many games have demos these days? And demos that your progress would carry forward into the real game. There was all of this, not hype, but actual concrete good that then just got totally destroyed for you.
I suppose you're right.
I felt bad for you.
My end result for both games was the same. I was unfortunate enough that both games effectively deleted all my progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the difference is you're right. With Cyberpunk 2077, I put in 26 hours, which is substantial. And then it got deleted, and I had my annoyances throughout the game, but I was able to play it for the most part.
Right.
Outriders, I was able to play it really well for over 100 hours, and then they deleted all of my progress. The difference is, and I think where you're right, that it definitely earns its spot, is way more playtime invested into it. But the big difference is Outriders is a multiplayer game. So I was playing with people who had purchased the game to play with me, who we had played together. We took the same days off of work to play together. Yep. We played alongside each other for 6 days straight. And the one person who was missing from our group, the day he finishes his 10-day straight, like, in-house shift at his job, he gets on to play with us, and lo and behold, within an hour of him playing, my entire account gets deleted.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Outriders, number one disappointment.
It was this massive high and these crushing depth lows.
Just proves people can fly, but apparently they can't code.
Wow.
Got him.
Wow.
So I would have to agree with Bruno here. Cyberpunk, obviously, and I'm not trying to be on the Cyberpunk train, whatever. I mean, it was a game that we all bought into, like Phoenix said, bought into the hype. And it was overhyped, obviously way overhyped. Definitely should have been better, and we all paid for that. Literally paid for that, and it's still being worked on, as we were joking about it earlier with some of the clips. So I don't need to beat a dead horse. Cyberpunk, obviously, ultimately a AAA game that should have been, just was not, and that ultimately would be my number one. So I'm going to pick something else just because I don't want to just do that. But I guess the other game for game at the moment that was probably the most disappointing, I would think, and I would say most disappointing, but like just kind of like not so much fun, I felt like, was Mountain Blade. The one we played, and it wasn't obviously new. It was an older version that was on Xbox Game Pass. We got to play it, but we had fun because we played it together, and it was like us just joking around and kind of just making fun out of it. But it was really janky and really just not fun. Like, it was, there just wasn't a lot there. And I know it's an older game, but it really, like, we had to make fun out of it. Because there wasn't really much going on in the game, and there was a lot of jank.
It's just funny because that game was held in high regard for a long time.
Yeah.
Because when it released, it was kind of a big deal, and then the modding community made the game what it was.
Yeah.
So
some of it was not having too many live players and mostly doing bots, and that kind of like you said, we made our own fun with that game. And
well, it was fun
of the game
when Demiran finally figured out like he could like basically control the group as mobs.
my fortress of shields and spears, which is me in the center of it, surrounded by them, and I'm just like,
yeah,
it was effective.
It worked, but I would say that was probably the least favorite game we played with that game, and I guess that was my pick, so whatever.
Well, I'd say it's fun because you have a couple of different ways that you're saying this segment, which is the the game that was like the biggest disappointment, or the game that, you least like, or I actually like what you originally wrote in the show notes here. What is the game of the moment game that you're most upset with? Which is another way of saying it.
But yeah, it could mean something different.
Hands down, Fallout 76.
Oh,
and
I forgot all about that. Ooh, can I retract my last statement?
And it wasn't even just that the game itself had because like this is after the game had matured. They put in the NPCs finally.
Right. We played this way later.
And it was well done. But what had happened, for whatever reason, it wouldn't run
that one
on PC for me. So I loaded it up on Xbox. And this is kind of a personal thing here. I mean, yeah, Zycy is like, can I change my answer? But I think the reason why I'm saying it's a little bit different here, because I loaded up on Xbox while they loaded up on PC. And we found out that even though they were both on Xbox Game Pass, there was no crossplay. And it was the most frustrating, felt like the most waste of my time. And it felt like it was the closest to actual like grindy, annoying work that I have done for Game of the Moment or the podcast or anything else here. Like, we all put in a lot of effort into this outside of just like showing up and being talking heads and trying to be funny and sometimes occasionally accidentally succeeding. But even put in all that extra work, nothing compared to just the abysmal time that I had playing Fallout 76. And not all of it was just the game. It was partially the situation where I didn't get to play with my friends.
Yeah.
Because
there was
it wouldn't
also
work on PC for me.
There was also a guest that we had that one came in, Deflunky, that went to play with us on a PC, brand new everything, top of the line. And he would load in and the game would crash. And we'd load in and the game would crash. And he'd load in and it was just like it's not even like he doesn't have like, maybe a mid-range PC and it's just kind of not compatible. No, like he had the top of the line and like the game couldn't even run on his machine. It was like, oh man. And outside of just the hatred I already had for the game because they just destroyed Fallout with this game. I tried to play it again. We tried to play it later when they added the game back, the NPCs back. And it still it did not bring it home. That game is just not. They just need to like erase that from the history books. But yeah, good choice.
I was even trying at the time because I was like, okay, but it's an NPC and like that's how NPCs work, and you were trash talking it, and I was kind of like trying to be optimistic about it, and I was just failing miserably because I just hated my time with that game.
Yeah,
because
it was a bit different
mostly,
for me,
but
because I had played the game so much before. Like when Fallout 76 came out, before all the updates, I already played like 100 hours of it with some friends. So like the game has its merits, but they're not. You can't get into it. You certainly can't get into it in a day to where you can have some fun with it. In my opinion, it has a slow startup time. It's one of the worst multiplayer games to play alone. Absolute worst. It's so weird because the whole idea is just flawed, right? Like you make Fallout is a game that used to be designed to be played alone. Full of story, quests, just lore. The environment is supposed to engage you. Granted, it was janky.
Keep going.
But they took the game, they tried to make it into a multiplayer game, but it's like they still made it they tried to make the world for multiplayer, but they didn't make it engaging enough to where people would want to keep playing it. So now you're in a multiplayer world alone. That's janky still, running on a super old engine that should not be running on, doing seemingly just useless stuff, because at the end of the day, you're playing a multiplayer game that once you achieve everything in the game, you have nobody to share it with. So there's just no point. All the aspects of the game that matter, all the single player aspects are mostly gone. The story is mediocre. And then, to top it all off, the multiplayer functions are lackluster. So you failed. You failed to make the game the single-player game people knew and loved, and you failed to make the multiplayer game that you tried to innovate on, which means, at your core, you failed at all of the ambitions that you had as a game company, that you aspired to for legitimately over a decade, and you missed the mark almost on every single cue.
Yep.
So
100% agree. I am right there with you. That was a good one. I totally agree with that. That was great. So the last question.
Oh my God, look at your hair.
Oh man, throwing it back.
Oh my God.
This is the rant alert. Oh man, look at your hair. Jeez. This is like so long ago, I feel. The other thing we have here is what game of the moment game surprised you? And I'll start with this one. So ultimately, I'm going to say what number one because I've already said it. It's Phasmophobia. Completely surprised me because I didn't know where it came from. But I'm not going to talk about it because we already did. The other honorable mentions, though, that I have is there's two games that really stood out to me over this past year that was just kind of out of the blue. And I was like, wow, this is really fun.
I know exactly what's coming, and I agree.
The first one is Tetris Evolved. I had a blast playing Tetris Evolved because of the music, and it reminded me a lot of Geometry Wars I used to play back on Xbox 360, and Geometry Wars Evolved too, whatever. And it had just enough hook and also multiplayer to keep you and your friends entertained and really wanting to figure out how to do it and beat the levels, and there was all these new patterns and new songs, and as you laid down the Tetris blocks, the tetra what is it called?
Tetraminos.
The Traminos, as you laid them down, you could get Tetraminos. You could get certain beats, and if you laid it at certain points, it would just build the song, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed that. So that was the first one. And then my second runner-up, which is basically tied, is Valheim. Valheim kind of came out of nowhere, and it was, it was Captain E, who's in the chat right now. He basically said, "Hey, do you want to check out this game about Vikings? It just came out yesterday. Check it out." And I was like, they had metal in the the trailer, and I was like, okay, I want to be a Viking. And I started playing it, and it was we started building, and of course, survival game. You got me. You give me an axe and a tree. I'm gonna, without cussing, I'm gonna just go cut down some trees and build something. So I did that, and then as we started getting everybody else into it, there was just so many more layers to this game that I know a lot of you actually played it longer than I did, and it was funny because when we brought in Brian, he was like, "This game is stupid. This is the same game that we've been playing that you love to play, and I am tired of it." And I'm like, okay, well, it's really fun. You should try it. And he started playing it. And then before I know it, he was playing it more than I was. And but that game had so many different levels of just fun outside of just the building and just exploring. And the art of that game, to me, was very interesting because if you zoomed in, it looked very pixelated, very low graphic, whatever. Yes. But as you zoom out, it made it look almost like a watercolor, almost like very cel shaded looking. But yet kind of realistic in a way, very artsy. So anyway, that would have to be my other, the most surprised game, I guess, of the year.
Yeah, I actually agree with that one. Valheim is one of the ones that surprised me the most. Again, I was playing it more than you were.
Yeah.
I had unlocked more stuff. I was teaching you about raising and breeding piggies, and you started doing that before me, but you came over and you're like, "What the heck have you been doing? There's 40 of them here. They're all 2 stars." And
yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
Well, and then we built the raft. That was the coolest thing because the map is so large. When you start, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. But that was the most surprising to me for a game that I played. And I kind of want to give an honorable mention to the game that surprised me the most that I didn't play, the one that I've only seen during Game of the Moment, and yet we kind of misquote or badly quote it on an almost daily basis because Kuno doesn't care.
Oh, right.
And it's just like, I was not expecting Disco Elysium to just come out of nowhere. I mean, okay, not come out of nowhere. I mean, it was critically acclaimed. Lots of people knew about it. We talked about the voice acting on it was absolutely amazing. And you know, how the voice actor had never done anything like that before, but then he played all these different aspects of your psyche and in such a way that they were noticeably different from each other. And it was just so amazing even the look looked very painterly.
Yeah.
And just looked beautiful. And I had heard some of that stuff. I had heard about like, you know, a lot of people oh, you got to play Disco Elysium. And I'm like, it's another adventure game. And again, I tend not to play that type of game. And that was a game that I could just sit there, Zycia, and watch you play it.
Yeah, I mean, that may be another game of the moment to revisit, because I mean, I continued playing it. I need to actually get back in. But that is actually a game that I also miss. I forgot to mention that, but that's a good one too. That was something that did come out of left field and was like, wow, this is really fun. One
thing that I gotta say is if anyone out there likes adventure games and has not played this, play it. Yeah. And if you think you might be interested in it, then go check out some videos on it, ours or other people's videos, and check it out and see if you want to play it. The one thing that I think is so amazing about that game is the dialogue trees. Like almost every other game that I've seen, you know, like dialogue trees, didn't get the cat, is that it seems like that the conversation is like predictable, or the choices you get to respond with are kind of like rote or not written. I mean, like just, you know, boring everyday responses that you're giving and the commonplace stuff. And the responses in the conversation tree, I was like, no, like you can't just hit the kid. Like you're supposed to be a cop and you're going to punch this kid.
Spoilers.
Like, that's an option. No, that's going to make everything go south and you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. And you do it. And it actually moved the conversation forward in a positive way. And it was actually a way to get some of the things that you needed. And the kid like respected you more and talked to you more and like came in and was like confidentially talking to you and like telling Kunis to be quiet, that like, it's okay. And like, it was so surprising with the dialogue tree. So hands down, most surprising game to me, especially for a game that I didn't even play. It was incredible.
Agreed.
It's Valheim for me. Yep. Hands down. That's the one. That is like, it just, there's no advertisement for it whatsoever leading right up to release day. Release day, they dropped their one trailer and they're like, check it out. Here we go. Alpha. We're going early access. Let's do it. And then they just released the game. We bought it. We played it for game of the moment. I was like, okay, building system kind of sucks. Not really feeling it. Day 2, interesting. 3, still playing. 4, still playing. Month number 3, still playing. Like now I have like a mansion with like 9 different rooms and like curved awnings and like secret hidden areas for chests, a throne room, like a master bedroom, guest bedrooms, giant hearths throughout the entire place, a moat, spike fences, like an entire bridge, and I'm sailing around the world trying to do a challenge run where I 1v1 every single boss in the game. And I was just like, the game was a complete package right through. Like everything about the game was just so much fun, and like it was so, I hadn't gotten the feeling of like that intensity since like playing through Neo 2, of like fighting that last boss solo and he's slamming AoEs all over the place. And like when he died, I was just like, well, this was amazing. Like going into other people's servers and just like they'll be like, oh yeah, like I'm stuck here, and going to help them. Like there was just so much to do.
Being able to pop in and out with your characters, like with the stuff.
So many fun things to do, and like there was a little bit of everything for everybody, and a lot of everything for a lot of other people. And the developer was pretty humble about it. They kind of they released it, and they were like, here's what we have, we're going to keep working on it. And people liked it, and they asked for more, and they're like, we're going to do more at our own pace. We'll get to you guys when we get to you.
Yep. Yeah, so, it was very awesome.
Where we were just talking about Fallout 76, which was all the incorrect ways to promise things and do things and go about things for the most part, you shift over to a company where they did all the right things. They didn't overpromise anything. They didn't try and say they were going to do something and then deliver on it. They just did what they wanted to do. They did what they set out to do. They talked to their community. They set expectations. They said, listen, these are the plans we have. We don't have a timeline for when we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done when we get it done. We appreciate your support. Yeah. We look forward to having you guys play our game in the future as we improve upon it. They just continued on with it. So
yeah, solid choice. All right, so that's what we've been playing this week. No, so the next segment.
That's what we've been playing
usually this year, right? It was a joke. So the next one usually is our news shorts, our short attention news, and we take a minute. We're not going to take a minute. We're going to talk a little bit more than that, but. Some of the things I have here is what was your favorite news item or article from last year?
So I was talking about this right before I came in, and I alluded to it when we were doing our pre-show checkup that I was intending to go through all the show notes, look at all the news items.
You didn't do that? I did that.
I did not do that because I found what really was, because this is controversial. It's my favorite news item, but it wasn't a good news item. It wasn't a happy news item, I should say.
Yeah.
And I found it on our second episode. I couldn't believe
I'm gonna go roll
that
back.
On our second episode that we were there. We watched it happen live as Mixer got shut down.
Oh, right. That was, that's a good point.
I still follow one of the guys that just because I just want to check in on him. It's Obi Bert Kenobi, because we watched as he was streaming on Mixer, unaware of this. And somebody dropped it in his chat and he's like, nah, what? No, you're messing with me. Yeah. And he stopped what he was doing. And it was such a powerful moment that we never showed it on our podcast. We really didn't show what he was doing all that much. It was just insane watching this happen live and watching the realization go through this, that all this, the community he had built, the, building up his level where he was, literally making money from it. And that, I don't know if you could call it his livelihood or not, because I don't know what his finances are, but certainly something contributing to his livelihood, suddenly getting just turned off. Just said, hey, you got until this date and it's all gone.
Yeah, it's all gone.
It was, we had only done one episode starting 6/18/2020. Episode 1 got our attention. And it was before 6/25, our second episode, that this had all gone down. And I was like, this sucks. It's a terrible news item. But that's it's things like this and the discussion that it brought up and the things that got us talking about it is the whole reason why we wanted to start this and share our opinion on stuff. Are we experts in a lot of this stuff? Pretty much no. There's tons of people that know more gaming history than I do, or play more games than I do.
Better connections and have those information way insider before than us. We get what you guys get. We just consolidate it, and that way, in case you missed it, you get to hear it.
Yeah. And I mean, from the very beginning, I wanted to be able to share our opinions on stuff and present information as well. And try to be entertaining at the time. We can't always on every news story. So while it's kind of a sad and sucky news story, it really was hands down my favorite news item of the entire time, just because it immediately was why we were here. It was immediately the reason why we're here, and having seen it live and then being able to come back and contribute and talk about, hey, and by the way, here's some of the streamers that got affected, and here they're moving to Twitch or they're moving to Facebook. And like, if you're interested in that type of thing, go follow them and, and just do what little part we can.
Yeah. Good thing we didn't pick Mixer to start off our streaming on, because that would have been this. Dude, I know we almost did multi-streaming.
Conversation between you and I.
We almost did the multi-stream thing and picked that as one of our things. And we were like, well, do we want to just do that, or we want to stick with Twitch? Like, so
yeah. And I was even advocating going to Mixer to permanently for the fact that it was a smaller pond.
Yeah.
So you could grow to be a bigger fish a little bit faster. And like week 2, they're announced they're dying.
Yeah, that was wild. What do you got, Bruno?
I don't know. Like, I was thinking about it, and I couldn't really pick a favorite news item from the last year. I feel like there was a specific category that I got really engaged in that spanned not just hardware but software, but pretty much the category of everything that is the releases in the last year and how abysmal they have been. The amount of news that we have had based on just the horrible execution of so many companies at releasing things, like the entire saga of hardware that I was so invested in because I was trying to buy all of these items, and how every single time you thought it couldn't get any worse, it just did.
Surprise.
It just did. Every single time when the first release happened, which, like, I think technically the first pre-order that happened was the PlayStation, right? PlayStation pre-order was the first one to go live. It was an abomination. It came out early. A bunch of people got stuff that they, that was fine. A bunch of scalpers got stuff, and then nobody got anything past that point. Then it was the Xbox release, which also didn't do well. Then came out the 3080s. Absolutely abysmal release. Then it was the 3070s and 3090s. It just continued to add on to itself. Day after day,
CPUs.
AMD CPUs, week after week, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then when everything had come out and everybody figured, all right, well, there's no way that it could possibly get worse than this, it just did. They were like, here's these custom PlayStation consoles. Never mind, we don't actually have them. Just kidding. Pull everything back. Fail to refund people correctly. Legitimately steal people's money. Here's these custom controllers. Just kidding, not allowed. Failed to sell them. Every single time something has tried to happen with hardware, without fail, it has become a news story because not a single company has successfully released almost anything, whether it be hardware or a video game, in the last year. It has been, in my opinion, the worst year of releases. It's like the blooper reel from Cyberpunk 2077 turned into a year of releases. Just every single person. It's so comical that in a year of doing the podcast, we have managed to hit every single major company in the gaming industry and hardware industry with some kind of stupid story where they just release something completely without thought. Whether it be just absolutely no stock for graphics cards, PlayStations, Xboxes, lack of stock for the Switch for a while, Cyberpunk 2077 coming out unfinished, Outriders, now Biomutant. I feel like every single company has just missed the mark through and through. It's just not a good year for major corporations in terms of releasing for the gaming and hardware industry. And it's, I think all of it accumulated, just compiled together, brings me so much joy in a weird way where I'm like, I suffered through it, but also so did they. They suffered through their own garbage day in and day out because they made poor decisions. And it's just, I don't know, just like endless streams of entertainment from the just terrible decision making of somebody out there, mixed in with things they couldn't control. Like, COVID obviously adds to it, but it's no secret that companies have slowly but surely gotten a little bit more greedy and cut a few more corners. And like, just talking about when we were talking about the 3080 release and the 3090s, I remember specifically talking about the 3090s and like, the president of NVIDIA or whatever talking about the 3090, the future of gaming. This card is going to revolutionize the video game industry. The absolute peak of gaming perfection in a piece of hardware. Congratulations, it's actually a rendering card, and it's useless for gaming because the 3080 performs the exact same as it in almost every scenario. What? How is that possible? But yeah.
Oh man, that was a good one.
Yeah.
So mine is, it was the interesting one, but it revolved around the stock market. And and it was the game stonk, right? The GameStop stock. GameStop, I can't even say it now. GameStonk. But yeah, it was literally that. Like, GameStop has a stock that someone on the internet because of the fact that, there had been a huge market crash because of the pandemic, had realized that, they were into stocks. They obviously knew what they were doing, and they realized there was a huge amount of like short interest against this company and short sales or whatever they call it, and they were going to capitalize on it. He bought a bunch of shares of it at a really cheap price. Like, I think it was like 30 cents or $3 or something crazy. And, with an expectation of like in a year, like it's going to skyrocket. Well, once that kind of broke out, like it was, I remember sitting here going like, what is this about? And then like people are like, you gotta buy it. And then the fuel of the internet just on Reddit, and then Wall Street Bets, the subreddit, like kind of fueling this fire to the point where like they were rising the stock by just pure like, and it became a new thing, a meme stock, like literally something that had nothing to do with anything, and people were just jumping on board because they wanted to make money. They want to make a quick buck. And I'm saying I did it too. Like I chased the FOMO. I went after it and was like, oh God, I got to make money too. And it was just, but it was such an interesting time, and it still happened. There's still there's like a whole thing now. There's literally a fund of meme stocks, like stocks that are actually like all of the AMC and the GME and the BB and just all of these stocks that this thing came out of nowhere. And like all of a sudden now, because most people are in the pandemic or sitting at home and trying to figure out how to either find a new job because they've gotten laid off, find a better job because they're still having to work in shitty conditions that are, probably against their health risk and everything, or just trying to make an extra money, like extra buck. And they're like, man, the stock market, we can do that. It's like the American dream, right? And people just throwing money into that, and it just fueling this crazy meme thing. And it's still happening today. Like they basically, the internet saved GameStop. Exactly. GameStop is at, I think, is that 230 right now?
It's at 230.
Yeah, it was at like 350 like yesterday or something. So it's like it's still happening right now, and it has gotten a lot more people into the stock market, which has also caused a lot of issues, because when that was happening, the actual SEC, like the security board, had to like step in and be like, whoa, like we had to stop trading on the stock because like it was so volatile, and they're not used to seeing stuff like that. And it's because people just were throwing money and just doing whatever, like YOLO, like I'll just YOLO my money, my 401k into this thing and just see what happens. And lots of people lost money, and a lot of people have made money. And it was just the craziest thing, especially revolving around GameStop, a company that was basically going to go out of business because ThinkGeek had bought them, and they were a game place where you'd go and trade games and pay overpriced for a lot of stuff, and they don't give you a lot of money for it. And it was kind of like ThinkGeek started putting their products in there to kind of get you as a place to kind of buy cool stuff. But ultimately, the business model was shot. Like I don't see it surviving. But single-handedly, the internet. The internet people saved this company and now have made this company like way exponentially better than like they would have ever been and never been able to survive. And it's, to me, that is like the craziest thing that we covered last year. Whew, man, still crazy to me. Still thinking about it. It's still crazy. So the next part I have is what was your favorite memory from SASS Gaming last year? And go ahead, Bruno. You start it. Sorry to put you on the spot there, bud.
No, it's fine. I don't know what my favorite memory is. Like, even thinking about it, I'm like, there's been a lot of interesting times. And I feel like my favorite times in general are when I'm really engaged and ranting on something, but there's been so many of those times.
Yeah.
It's so, I think the one that I was probably the most passionate about was really my rant on, was it Cyberpunk? After Cyberpunk's release, when all the issues initially came out, there was a specific episode where I know that I went off about everything that was Cyberpunk 2077. But like, even then, like, I don't know, it's just so hard for me to choose a specific one, because like Nvidia was really specific for me too, because like I was there trying to get a 3080, and I remember when I finally got one, or the PlayStation 5. Yeah, you know what? It was definitely Cyberpunk 2077. I got so engaged in that game, and I remember we were doing a specific podcast. I want to say it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks after they had tried to release their initial update to resolve some problems, and it made it substantially worse. It was when they removed the functions that, according to them, did nothing. Did absolutely nothing.
Right.
And somehow they managed to make the game tank even worse. And I distinctly remember just absolutely losing my shit over it, because we'd been playing the game, I'd been trying to get into it, I've been running into bugs like crazy. You were having a great time. Like, you're like, oh, I barely run into any bugs at all. Everything's great. And then they announced the whole, oh, there's a 10 megabyte issue. If your save file goes over 10 megabytes, then your client will break. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, we can't do anything about that, but here's this update that's going to fix a bunch of stuff. And it made it worse. It made it so much worse. I went from seeing a few bugs in story quests to I would like drive a car and hit like nothing. Sometimes it'd be like a curb. Sometimes I'd just be driving and the car would just like fly off into the sky. And I'm like, sick, great, perfect. Like the first freaking story quest where you pull up in like the water main area, like the woman gets out of the car and she like is like freaking out. She glitches through the car goes flying, and then the game crashes. And I start back from the beginning of the quest. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what is actually happening? And every time I expected it to get better, it just got worse. Just worse and worse. So my best memory was of that specific rant, like 3 weeks after Cyberpunk released, where I just absolutely lost my mind over how stupidly bad the game released in a state. And it was different for everybody, but I distinctly remember just having so much rage that it was like all the rage of getting the 3080 so I could play the game at max settings, all the rage of like all the attempts to get hardware, just compounded into one instance of just like, man.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, like
game.
I had a better time. I had a better time.
It was my favorite memory. It was hilarious. It was my absolute favorite memory. It was absolutely hilarious. My favorite moments in life is when I am very passionately just absolutely destroying something for how stupid it is. I get so much enjoyment out of it.
I mean, I didn't run into as many bugs as you did, but like the key bindings were like the bane of my existence in this game.
You couldn't rebind any of the keys.
Oh God, yeah.
Like that to me was like the most just disturbing thing about this game. So like I
remember that. Yeah, we were going through the files, and I was like, where can we modify this on our own? Because CD Projekt Red just was like, whoop, we forgot how to develop the other 40% of our damn game.
So I have to say my favorite moment from last year would have to be the charity event I ran for Able Gamers to raise money. And thanks to most of you out there, and even Phoenix here and everything, was we raised $600 for Able Gamers. And yes, I had to play a bunch of scary games, and I was not. And I'll be honest, those games were not very scary. I was actually very disappointed in that sense. Because the games that I picked were games that were apparently really scary, and then it turned into like playing it for like a few hours, and I'm like, when is this gonna actually I had more fun playing Phasmophobia, really, for as the scariness part of it, but just the fact that I got to be able to play and had some people come out and support us and be able to raise money for a good cause, and all of that going to charity to help kids who don't have it as easy as a lot of us be able to use a controller or whatever. To me, that was really cool, and I liked the fact that it had a platform that was integrated, so I could literally, like, you guys could donate money and it would go straight into Able Gamers. I didn't even have to touch it. It was great. So really cool, and we'll have to figure out what 4 games we're gonna play.
4 months.
4 months. Oh, in 4 months. Got it.
July, August,
yeah, I got you.
September, October.
But that would be, I guess, my favorite moment of last year.
I know what my favorite moment this next year coming up is going to be. When the community picked games of actual scary games for your next annual fundraising.
Oh yeah, Shocktober. That's what it was.
Shocktober. 4 months. Well, 4.5. I mean, I listen, I've had so many fun times with this crew and making this and making the other content that we make and discovering new ways to use technology to like play around with what we're doing, to like innovate some stuff. I mean, all that's been fun. I can honestly say, though, that, even with all the technology and all the things that we're doing, really just the fun is just the dumb stuff that we come up with every now and then. Just the perfect moment. That time when Zycia is like, hey, I'm just going to say this random thing because I know Brian's the editor, and I'm just going to be talking about, oh, hey, why don't you put a flashing light somewhere on the screen? And because, Bruno's coming up and, you're just going to get ready for him. You're going to rant alert,
I see. I thought you were going to say the one about who's got the best wood.
That is another one of them. That was actually my next statement was, just the dumb things when he's like trying to plug his video, who's got the best wood. And then he's throwing it over to me next. So he doesn't think anything of it. He's finishing his stuff. Yeah. Go check out my video. Who's got the best wood? Brian. And without a beat, I'm like, yes, thank you. I do have the best wood. And the look on your face was priceless.
Man. That was pretty good.
Like, son of a.
Yeah, that was.
And
that was a good one.
It's just those moments that we've had together. And it's not just the 3 of us. I mean, I say the crew. I mean, our fans, our family, our listeners, our participants, whether live or not live, people commenting on stuff in YouTube. We've gotten some great comments. It's just all that together, all those fun little moments, those little gems that pop up every now and then that just take it over the top to just being absolutely hysterical fun time.
Nice. So the next one I know is gonna be kind of hard for you guys, but this is typically where we cover our email section. And I know a lot of you probably don't have all the emails, and if you remember one, feel free to talk about it.
Oh, I remember one in specific.
Okay, cool. Well,
my favorite email by far was like a couple months back, 3 months back maybe. It was when we had just started the initiative to not swear on our streams anymore. And it coincided with the fact that I had family visiting. So I missed 2 streams in a row, and one of them had friend of the podcast, guy who joined us, Tom, in it. And somebody sent in an email and said something to the effect of, is Bruno not coming back now because swearing is banned? And that just floored me. I was like, the fact that someone understands me so well out there that they're like, was the lack of swearing too much for Bruno? Like, did he disappear? I was like, no, I didn't, but thank you for thinking of me. It was great. Yeah. I love that email.
That one was great. It was such a surprise. Like I purposely try not to look at the emails because I like to be surprised. And that was a good one. And the other one that surprised me, even though I had to be co-opted into helping present the email.
Yeah.
Because I had the ability, I tend to be the one that shows the video up and everything. I have that all nice and set up. And it was just that email about the tiny little models that Daydrinker sent in, the tiny cafes and, the tiny houses. And like, I knew enough about it that I was supposed to play this video and I was supposed to play around like this area of the video. And then I was supposed to do this other thing. And it still completely shocked and surprised me. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I knew a little bit about this existing, but not to this level. It was so crazy. And I was like, this is, and then at the very end, being able to show some of their work as well. So, I'm looking forward to that updated photo. I'm looking forward to what the current work is. I've been mentioning it several podcasts since then. I've mentioned that I want to see an update on it. I think it's fascinating. If anything, it kind of rekindled my love for the small things where I started doing Lego again. And, it kind of like sparked that in me a little bit. So that was definitely my favorite email, hands down.
Yeah, definitely up there on my list as well. The other one I remember was one of our fans, Sarg, sent in an email after we talked about the Animal Crossing with the funeral, that they had like a type of like celebration with all the people kind of getting together because somebody passed away, and him sending an email in talking about the Eve community, about how one of their main leaders had passed away, and that they had like a huge like gathering of all these people coming in to just like celebrate the person's life. And it was just cool that like this reminded him of that, and it was just something that we talked about, that he was like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this, and it sounded a lot familiar like that. So it was really cool reading that story and being able to, put that alongside of like something we were talking about. So it's really neat.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that, yeah, sure, we joke around as friends and buds and just messing around on the internet, but at the same time, we truly do take pride and enjoy the fact that we can touch someone else out there with some of the things that we're talking about, that whether it's remind them of something and nostalgia, or make them chuckle, or make them think fondly of something, even if it's a sad event, just to be able to touch, our family out there. That's a pretty damn cool thing. Really, that's one of the things that's right now, that's our main payment.
Yeah, really. So we've said it before. We have a lot in store. We have a lot of ideas going forward from today. We are going to start season 2 next week. We've made a decision that we're not going to pick it up at episode 53. We're going to, we'll know it's 53, but we're going to pick it up as season 2, episode 1. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And the main reason is that we're going to, step up a season. Like, this is going to be our next new improved us? Like, what can we do to make us better and provide better content and be able to get out there and just do better things? And whether that's, do more charity events, do more videos, do whatever, we're going to try to do that. And by doing that, we're going to say season 2, episode 1. And the next thing we're going to do starting next week is we're going to start off our episode 1 with a guest. So we're going to hit you with a special guest on first episode, just to start off the year strong like that. And that's, and then everything else, we're going to just continue, breaking and changing until we get to the point where we just keep going and, get to season 3 and 4 and 5. So again, that this is what got our attention, right? And we really appreciate all of you for watching and listening. If this is your first episode, which it may be, it's great if it is. If you're listening to this podcast on a streaming service, we do this live on YouTube, live on Twitch at twitch.tv/SASS Gamers. And then we also take the video afterwards and we upload it to YouTube where you can watch it later if you wanted to catch it that way. There's a little bit of good for each of those. If you listen to a podcast and you have to be in a car, that's a great way to listen to it. Watching it live, you get the benefit of being able to interact with us on the stream. And in between, when you guys are listening to the ads, we talk to the people out there listening and in the comments. So we get to interact like that a little bit. And sometimes a little behind the scenes stuff. And then on the YouTube videos, you get to just pick it up and watch that live version, the video format of this podcast, as if you're only used to listening. So there's different delivery methods there, and we appreciate whichever method you want to do. The other thing too is, as we said, we're not getting paid for this, and we're not saying we have to get paid for this. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is we do have a Patreon account. If you are interested in somewhat supporting us in a financial standpoint, you can do that at our patreon.com/SASS Gaming, and you can sign up. And some of the perks we have for you guys is you get the podcast ad free. Some of the new content we're talking about, we're going to release on just for our Patreon subscribers. And you also get some flair on the Discord channel as well. So that'll be something that you get as well. And we're going to keep adding. Right now, there's only one tier. We'll keep adding to that as needed, as we get value out of some sort of tier that you're going to pay for if that's what you want to do. But either way, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, website, sassgaming.com. It's still there. It's just a link tree. It has all the different links for all of us, so you can check out everything you want to see. And the main goal that we're trying to work towards right now is getting our YouTube to 100 subscribers. Currently, we're at close to 50?
Yeah, we're just under 50.
Just under 50.
We went to 47 today.
47, great. So we're almost halfway there. We're almost Bon Jovi, and we just need to get 50 more, So tell your friends, tell anybody pick up your friend's phone, just go to our page, hit follow, and then they don't even know it's there. But that all of those help us. Once we hit 100, we're able to actually do a customized URL, so it'll be a lot easier for you guys to find our content on YouTube, and that's super helpful. So we really appreciate that. And we're gonna try to just pick up our social media presence. We're gonna try to get more, tweets out there, more YouTube links, more content, just overall everything more. That's our next year is just more. So with that, we if you want to follow us, get to our link tree. I don't even think we have to go through the whole everybody's information right now, but Linktree has all of that. We do appreciate you guys being here, and special guest next week. So until next time, you guys and gals, be safe out there, and we'll see you guys at season 2, episode 1.
See ya.
See ya.